Doctors pronounced him dead, but his brain kept working. What he saw on the other side changed our understanding of life and death forever. And this is just the beginning of a story that will make you rethink everything. The biggest mystery in the entire universe isn't out there among distant galaxies or black holes. It's right inside you. Every day, every second. It's your consciousness. What makes you, you? Your thoughts, feelings, memories, your personality, all your fears and dreams. Everything you experience there happens there. Scientists can dissect the brain into tiny pieces. They can study every neuron, see how electrical signals fire when we make a decision, laugh, or feel pain. We see the activity. We know that different parts of the brain control different functions. But how does something so abstract and unique as self-awareness emerge from this complex biological machine, this wet computer? It's a question that has plagued the best minds for centuries, from the philosophers of ancient Greece to modern neuroscientists. We know that consciousness is inextricably linked to the brain. If the brain is damaged, consciousness can change beyond recognition. If the brain dies, it seems to disappear with the last breath. It's just a fact we accept. But is it really that simple? Look, science can thoroughly explain how the heart works, how the lungs breathe, how the kidneys filter blood. These are mechanisms. It's physics and chemistry. But consciousness?
It's not just an organ. It's not just a set of functions. It's the very foundation of our perception of reality, our ability to be. And here's the main problem. If we still can't understand its true nature, how can we be absolutely sure that it simply disappears when the body stops functioning? This fundamental uncertainty gives rise to the boldest and sometimes shocking ideas. After all, if consciousness is more than just electrical impulses locked in a skull, then what is it? Can it exist outside the body? Can it be immortal, like some elusive ghost that simply sheds its physical shell? These are the questions that drive scientists, philosophers, and even ordinary people to look for answers where they seemingly don't exist. It's a search for something elusive that escapes any instruments, formulas, or even the most sophisticated theories. And this search leads us to stories that make you think. What if, at the very moment your heart stops and doctors pronounce the end, your consciousness is just beginning its most incredible journey? And what people see on the brink of life and death proves it. On the brink of life and death, things happen that don't fit into any logical framework. Imagine, a person experiences clinical death. Their brain received no oxygen, the heart didn't beat. Doctors had almost given up. But then they come back, and they tell what they saw on the other side. These aren't isolated cases. There are thousands of such stories. Reports of people who saw themselves from the outside, floated above their bodies, heard conversations between doctors that were later confirmed in minute detail, or met deceased relatives, saw a bright light, felt incredible peace, love. And all this happens at a time when, according to all scientific laws, the brain should be completely shut down. Here, for example, is the story of Dr. Mary C. Neal. She drowned during a vacation. Her body was underwater for almost half an hour. Doctors couldn't save her, but she came back and told how her soul left her body, how she met Jesus and angels. She described what was happening in the operating room when she was dead. Everything was confirmed. How is this possible if the brain wasn't working? Or the case of Pam Reynolds. During a complex brain surgery, her body was completely cooled to stop blood circulation. The brain was flat, with no activity. But afterwards, she described in detail how she saw the surgeon sawing her skull, heard the instrument, and even described the conversations of nurses that she couldn't hear physically. Science cannot explain how her consciousness continued to perceive the world while her brain was effectively dead. These stories aren't just anecdotes. They make even the most convinced skeptics think. These aren't hallucinations, because people often describe real events that happened around their dead body.
It's not just imagination, because these experiences often have common features, regardless of a person's culture or religion. So what is it? The last surge of a dying brain? Or something much bigger? What if consciousness isn't a product of the brain, but a receiver? The brain is like a television. When the TV is broken, there's no picture, but that doesn't mean the broadcast is stopped. Perhaps our consciousness is the same broadcast that continues, even when the TV is broken. These are the questions that push scientists to the boldest and sometimes incredible hypotheses, and one of them leads us to a world where the rules of familiar physics cease to work. Our brain is just an antenna, and consciousness is a quantum signal that doesn't disappear when the antenna breaks. This bold idea turns everything we knew about life after death upside down, and what scientists are finding is shocking. After all these stories about the brink of life and death, it's logical to ask, how is this even possible? How can consciousness exist when the brain is silent? And then quantum physics comes onto the scene, a science that studies the smallest level of reality, a world where particles can be in two places at the same time, and the observer affects the result. It's very strange, but this is where some scientists are looking for an answer. See, two major scientists, physicist Roger Penrose and anesthesiologist Stuart Hameroff, proposed their bold theory. They believe that consciousness isn't just the result of the work of neurons. It's born at a much deeper level, inside the brain cells themselves, in the so-called microtubes. These are tiny structures that are in every neuron, and there, at the quantum level, according to them, processes occur that we perceive as consciousness. Their theory is called orchestrated objective reduction. Sounds complicated, but the idea is simple. The brain isn't just a biological computer. It's more like a quantum computer. And when the brain turns off, for example, during clinical death, the quantum information that makes up our consciousness doesn't disappear. It doesn't die, but simply returns to some cosmic or fundamental field. It's as if your consciousness was a radio wave, and the brain was a radio receiver. When the receiver breaks, the wave doesn't disappear. It simply continues to exist in the air. This idea turns the usual understanding upside down. If consciousness has a quantum nature, it may be non-local. That is, not tied only to one place, to your brain. This opens the door to the idea that our personality, our memories, all our experiences can be part of something bigger, beyond the usual framework of time and space. This explains why people see and hear what's happening when their brain is inactive. Their consciousness may have temporarily disconnected from the receiver, the brain, but continued to exist and perceive. Of course, this hypothesis is very controversial. Many scientists are skeptical and believe that there's no direct evidence. But it gives a powerful impetus to reflection. It shows that we still know very little about the nature of consciousness and how our world is structured at the most fundamental level. And while some are looking for the soul in quantum fields, others are trying to create it from scratch, in digital form. One scientist, working late at night in the lab, stumbled upon data that didn't fit into any of the theories. What he discovered made him rethink everything, and it's just one step towards the last word of science about our consciousness. While some scientists are looking for the immortality of consciousness in the mysterious world of quantum physics, others are looking in a completely different direction. They don't just want to understand it, but to create it, transfer it, digitize it, and give it eternity in code. Imagine that your entire personality, memories, thoughts, feelings, everything that makes you you, can be copied into a computer.
It sounds like science fiction, but it's already a reality we're moving towards. The idea is simple. If our brain is a kind of complex biological computer, then why not create its digital copy? This is called consciousness uploading, or brain empiricism. The goal is to scan every neuron, every connection in the brain, and recreate them in a virtual environment.
Then, even if your physical body dies, your consciousness, your digital copy, will continue to exist in a computer, in the cloud, in a robot, anywhere. Some companies are already actively working in this direction. For example, the Blue Brain Project is trying to create a full-fledged digital model of a mammal's brain. So far, they're far from the human brain, but every step is a breakthrough. There are startups that offer to freeze the brain after death so that it can be revived or digitized in the future. These aren't just dreams. These are active studies that are happening right now. But what does it mean for us? It's not just about extending life. It's a radical change in the very concept of existence. If you can live forever in digital form, what will happen to your identity? Will you be the same person, or will it just be a copy? How will it affect society, overpopulation, the meaning of life? After all, if death ceases to be the end, does the incentive to live life to the fullest disappear? And this is where the most acute questions arise. If your consciousness is digitized, can you be killed simply by deleting a file? Can you be copied thousands of times? And if so, which of these copies will be the real you? This opens a Pandora's box of ethical, philosophical, and even legal problems that humanity has yet to solve. After all, creating digital immortality may turn out to be not only the greatest achievement, but also the most dangerous experiment in history. It's not just technology, it's a new reality. If these mysteries have made you think, then this is just the beginning. Subscribe to the Mysteries of the Spirit channel right now to not miss the next shocking discoveries about consciousness and its possible immortality. And give it a like if you want us to continue covering such topics.